Nkiruka was just a village girl, a girl who had grown up with love but without wealth. Her mother worked tirelessly as a maid in a rich household, and though Nkiruka's face shone with beauty, her status in society was enough for others to treat her as nothing. The rich girls at school made sure she never forgot who she was. Adaku was one of them, the last-born daughter of the Achebe family, the wealthiest and most powerful household in their village. She walked with pride, always surrounded by her friends, especially Adobe, her closest companion. Together, they tormented Nkiruka, laughing at her and imitating how she walks. Maid's daughter, they called her. You don't belong here, you cripple. One afternoon, as school was dismissed, a classic car arrived at the gates. It was Emenike, Adaku's older brother, the third-born son of the Achebe family. He was young, handsome, and powerful in his own right. He had come to pick up Adaku, but as he leaned against the car, waiting, his eyes caught sight of Nkiruka. Something in him shifted. Who is she? He asked Adaku, intrigued. Adaku scoffed. That's just Nkiruka the cripple. Her mother is a maid at Adobe's house. But Emenike didn't care. He stepped forward, his deep voice warm with kindness. Nkiruka, can I give you a ride home? Nkiruka froze, looking at the ground, her heart pounding. She had never spoken to Emenike before. She had only seen him from a distance, admired by all the girls. And now he was speaking to her? No, thank you, she mumbled, digging her other shoe into the soil, too shy to meet his eyes. Come on, he insisted, smiling. I won't bite. Adaku rolled her eyes and honked the car horn impatiently. Brother, let's go. She's not worth your time. But Emenike didn't move. Nkiruka, let me take you home. Everyone will see you getting into my car. You have nothing to fear. Her heart fluttered. Was this real? Slowly, she nodded. Emenike stepped forward, gently took her walking stick and backpack off her shoulders and opened the door for her. As she slid into the back seat, gasps filled the air. Girls watched in shock, their mouths hanging open. Others burned with jealousy. The next morning, as she walked into school, Adaku and Adobe were waiting for her. Their faces were dark with anger. You think you are smart? Adaku sneered, stepping in front of her. You think you can seduce my brother? Nkiruka blinked, confused. I didn't. Adobe stepped closer, jabbing her finger into Nkiruka's forehead. Listen, maid's daughter. Don't limp your way to us. Emenike is not for the likes of you. Stay away from him. Next time he comes here, don't even look his way. Just walk like the worthless girl you are. Nkiruka felt something snap inside her. All the years of insults, all the whispered laughter behind her back, it all boiled over. Before she knew it, she shoved them both away from her. Adobe gasped, her eyes wide. Did you just... Before she could finish, Nkiruka's slap collided with her cheek. Adobe stumbled back, shocked. Then another punch, one so strong that Adobe fell to the ground, stunned. The entire schoolyard watched in silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. The maid's daughter had fought back. Adaku, shaken, wiped the blood from her friend's lip. She didn't dare fight back, but her eyes burned with hatred. You'll pay for this, you limping thing, she hissed. And she did. By the end of the school year, Adobe's parents stopped paying for Nkiruka's school fees. She was forced to leave the prestigious institution and finish her studies at a local public school. But none of that mattered. To Emenike, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. From the first day he saw her, standing shyly outside the school gates, eyes lowered as she avoided the taunts of her classmates, he knew she was different. There was a quiet strength in her, a light that shone despite the darkness of her circumstances, and Emenike could not look away. Each time, When Emenike drove her around, he would look at her and say, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he whispered, his voice filled with unshakable conviction. Nkiruka would lower her gaze, her heart pounding. He would lift her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are the sun that rises and sets in my world. When I close my eyes, I see you. When I wake up, I long for you. Your beauty is not just in your face, Nkiruka. It is in your kindness, your strength, your heart." She felt the tears sting her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever looked at her like she was something precious. He would drive miles just to see her smile, carrying gifts he knew she would love, not expensive jewels or silks, but things that mattered. A small woven bracelet from an old woman who told stories of love, a book of poetry he knew she would adore, a single flower plucked from the fields where they often walked. Every moment was a declaration, every touch a promise. Nkiruka had once feared that love like this did not exist, that men like Emenike, who loved without condition, who saw beyond wealth and status, were only found in stories. But as he held her close, whispering against her skin that she was his world, his heart, she knew that fairy tales could be real. Adaku's anger had burned deep. One day, she saw Emenike's car passing with Nkiruka inside. Rage boiled inside her. She stormed into the house, her face dark with fury. "Mother, can you believe that Emenike is seeing a crippled girl?" Adaku spat, her voice filled with disgust. Mrs. Achebe frowned. What? What are you saying?" "She's embarrassing our family. Her mother is a maid. She has no class, and now my brother is in love with her." Adaku's voice shook with anger. Mrs. Achebe's lips tightened. "A maid's daughter," she whispered, fury rising in her chest. "That's not even the worst part. She limps. She can't even walk properly. It's humiliating, mother. He's choosing her over girls from wealthy families." That night, Mrs. Achebe confronted Emenike. "Emenike, a maid's daughter, a cripple?" she hissed, standing in his doorway. Emenike sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mother, stop exaggerating. Nkiruka is not a cripple. She limps a little and uses a stick to balance her leg. But she is beautiful, kind, and wise. Even if she were a cripple, what would be wrong with that?" Mrs. Achebe's face turned red. "You disgrace this family. You shame us." But before she could say another word, Mr. Achebe stepped into the room. "Enough," he said firmly. "Our son has made his choice, and I support it." Mrs. Achebe's lips trembled, but she knew there was no winning this fight. If not for Mr. Achebe, their wedding would never have come to pass. And just like that, after Nkiruka finished her secondary education, Emenike married her. The only person who accepted Nkiruka besides Emenike was his father. Emenike's two elder brothers were in between, influenced by their wives. But because Mr. Achebe allowed it, the wedding happened. The Achebe household was enormous, filled with many family members, and all the wives stayed under the same roof. And so did Nkiruka. But it was clear from the beginning they did not like her. At first, it was the silent treatment. When the men left for business, the house became a cold place for Nkiruka. The other wives would whisper to each other and stop talking when she walked into a room. They would leave her out of conversations, giggling and mocking as she passed. She would cry silently in her room most afternoons, curled up in a ball, muffling her sobs so no one would hear. The only warmth she had was when Emenike returned. He would hold her close, kissing her forehead and cuddling her. But when Emenike was away, she was alone in her pain. One morning, Kiruka woke up and went to the kitchen to help prepare breakfast for the household. She was eager to be useful, to be accepted. But when she reached the kitchen, the head maid stopped her at the door. "Madam said you are not needed here," the woman said hesitantly. Nkiruka's heart sank. "Who said that?" "The big madam, your mother-in-law," the maid whispered. Tears welled in Nkiruka's eyes. Even the maids had been warned to keep her out. She turned away, limping to her room. She was an outsider in this house. How does it feel to finally wear a dress with no holes? Maid's daughter. It must be nice, eh? Adaku sneered in her usual tones. Nkiruka, calm but hurt, looked at her. It seems you have had beautiful dresses all your life, but that won't cover the dark holes in your heart. She turned and walked out, leaving an angry Adaku behind. She spent most of her time in her bedroom, hiding away from their cruel eyes. She never complained, but Emenike saw the sadness in her eyes. He knew she would never tell him, so he decided to act. He began searching for land to build their own home. One evening, as he returned home, his mother confronted him. It is not done, Emenike. All your elder brothers live here with their families. She must have poisoned you against us. Mrs. Achebe fumed. She has done no such thing, mother, Emenike said firmly. I want my wife to be happy. She deserves peace. She is ungrateful, Mrs. Achebe snapped. We gave her a home. A home? Emenike laughed bitterly. She is treated like a stranger in this house. A home is where one feels safe and loved. This is not a home for her. Mrs. Achebe's eyes darkened. You are making a mistake. The only mistake I made was thinking you would accept her, Emenike said. I am building our house and that is final. Months passed and the house slowly took shape. Nkiruka held on, knowing she would leave soon. The other wives, envious of her, watched in bitterness. Emenike loved her too much. It was too obvious. Every evening he would rush home, take her for walks, laugh with her in the garden and hold her close. The other wives saw this and burned with jealousy. Their marriages had been arranged, lacking love and warmth. Their husbands barely noticed them, let alone cherish them the way Emenike did with Nkiruka. Nkiruka's love was true, and so was Emenike's, and that love was a light no amount of cruelty could dim. 2 days before they moved, nobody was happy, and nobody helped Nkiruka pack. She moved around the house, slowly putting her things in boxes. Adaku and the other wives watched her from the living room. As she walked down the stairs, she suddenly screamed. Her foot slipped. Her stick fell immediately. She reached for the wooden rail, but her hands missed. She rolled down, hitting the floor hard. The women gasped. Nkiruka lay still, unconscious. Panic set in. Adaku sighed and walked away, but the other wives shook her gently. Just then, Emenike parked outside. When he stepped inside, his heart dropped. Nkiruka, he shouted, running to her side. As he turned her over, his eyes widened in horror. Blood was staining her dress and her slippers were oily. He lifted her, rushing to the hospital. The next morning, the hospital ward echoed with a sharp, heart-wrenching cry. Nkiruka sobbed, clinging to Emenike. It's okay, my love. God will see us through, he whispered, his heart breaking. She was 3 months pregnant, and she had lost the baby. When she was discharged, Emenike took her to their new home. That evening, he stormed into his family house. None of you even visited her. How cruel of you, he shouted. He looked around, his anger rising. Someone poured oil on the stairs. My wife slipped and lost our baby. His voice cracked as he dropped to his knees, weeping. They said she will never have children again. Was it you, Adaku? He whispered through clenched teeth. Adaku gasped. Me? No. Why would I? That's what? Emenike asked, stepping closer, his fists clenched, ready to strike, but his brother held him back. He turned to the other wives. Was it you? They all shook their heads. Enough with these accusations, Emenike, his mother shouted. Why would you accuse your own family? Mother, Emenike said, his voice trembling. If the things you did to my wife were done to Adaku, would you allow it? Would you be happy? His mother fell silent. My wife is my family. She is my life. And I swear, whoever did this will pay. Emenike wiped his tears and walked out shouting, "From this day forward, my wife is my only family." Adaku tried to defend herself, but her mother embraced her. "I know it's not you, my dear." The two wives exchanged glances, but neither spoke. At home, Nkiruka wept. Emenike held her close. "Don't worry, my love. We will have children. The doctors said what they said, but we will trust in God." Emenike pulled away from his family's business. With his savings, he started his own. Seeing his wife so broken, he enrolled her in college so she could have something to keep her mind busy. And together, they held on to hope. 2 years went by, and Emenike never visited his family. His father tried to persuade him, even visited them. "But my son, the businesses are collapsing. You are the only one who studied and kept us afloat. Please come back for my sake." Mr. Achebe pleaded. He sighed deeply and added, "I am sorry, son. I apologize for what happened. If I had been there, I would have done better." But Emenike shook his head. "You are only apologizing because your business is failing, father. Where were you when we needed you?" Because of Emenike's refusal to return, the Achebe family arranged for Adaku to marry a prince, an heir to the throne of the great kingdom of Umenze. The king of Umenze was wealthy, and this marriage was their way to restore the family's status. News of her marriage spread across 2 kingdoms, and her pride grew. Weeks before the wedding, she boasted to everyone, "I am going to be a queen," she would say, flaunting her royal gifts. When the wedding finally took place, the Achebe family was adorned in riches once more. The entire village celebrated, but one person was absent: Emenike. "My darling, just go. She's your family," Nkiruka whispered to him one night, her fingers brushing over his hand gently. "You have a kind heart. You care for people. You forgive." But Emenike shook his head. "My love, I know you mean well, but I am at more peace here with you than I ever was there." Nkiruka sighed, knowing nothing she said would change his mind. And so, while the drums of celebration echoed through the villages, Emenike and Nkiruka stayed in their home, far from the family. Months after the wedding, Adaku became pregnant. It was the greatest news in the kingdom. She carried the heir to the throne. Even her mother-in-law, the queen, tolerated her disrespect because of the unborn child. "My king, do you think we did right by marrying into your friend's family? The child has no manners. It's as if she wasn't brought up well," the queen said one day. "I agree with you, my queen," the king sighed. "Besides sending aid to her family, I feel she's a burden. But now she carries our grandchild, the heir to Umenze. We must endure." The queen frowned. "She slapped the maids the other day. Her words are sharp and she treats people badly." She paused before adding, "I had to remind her that she's not the queen yet when she spoke to me rudely." Then came the day of Adaku's birth. The labor started in the afternoon and stretched until night. It was long, painful, and exhausting. Everyone waited anxiously. By midnight, Adaku finally gave birth to a son. Just as the baby was placed beside her, something unnatural happened. A sudden thunderstorm struck, and lightning flashed outside. The windows slammed shut on their own, and a chilling breeze whispered into the room. The midwives froze, their hands trembling. It was as if someone or something had entered the room. They closed their eyes in silent terror. Then, as suddenly as it started, the storm ceased. The air settled, but the room remained tense. And then the screams began. The newborn prince was gone. The maids wailed. Adaku's husband burst into the room, his face pale with rage. "Where is my son?" he thundered. They searched the palace, every corner, every hall, but the baby had vanished. Adaku, weak and in shock, screamed as she realized what had happened. The kingdom was shaken. And though they mourned, Adaku fell pregnant again, desperate for an heir. And again, the second baby disappeared. Now, everyone in the palace was alarmed. The queen and king sat in deep worry, their faces grim, while Adaku's husband paced back and forth, his hands clenched into fists. Remember how the maids and guards were punished? We beat them, we locked them up, we made them confess, but they did not take the baby. And now it has happened again. What is this? There is something amiss, my king, the queen said, her voice trembling. We must go to the church and seek help. She continued, looking at her husband. Mother, church? The prince scoffed. I don't believe in those people. They are charlatans. Rather, we consult a seer. And so, it was done his way. It was his child, after all. The seer arrived at the palace, an old man with piercing eyes. He was called into the living room, where the royal family sat in silence. He closed his eyes, muttered words under his breath, then turned to Adaku. Oh, woman, you know what you have done. Everyone turned to Adaku. The queen gasped. What does this mean? She demanded. There is no resolution, the seer said. This woman has tampered with the wrong one. The same spirit that protects her is the same spirit that took away your newborns. Ask for forgiveness. Maybe the dark cloud over you will be lifted. The queen's heart pounded. Nkiruka was still a little girl back when her grandmother was still alive. They were poor, always struggling for food, but her grandmother was a woman of prayer. She had faith that even in their suffering, God was watching over them. One day, Nkiruka came home wailing, 2 boys carrying her, a small face twisted in pain. Grandmother, a boy at the river hit her with a stone, one of the boys said. Her grandmother gasped when she saw the wound. It was deep, and soon it became worse. They could not afford a hospital, so the wound festered. Nkiruka screamed at night from the pain, the infection growing worse each day. She could no longer walk properly. She was sick, weak, and suffering. One day, her mother, who worked as a maid for Adobe's family, told them about Nkiruka's condition. Out of kindness, they offered to take her to the hospital, but it was too late. The doctors shook their heads and said, she has sepsis. It is too late. The bacteria is already moving to her other organs. Nkiruka's mother wept, holding the frail child in her arms. That night, she knelt down and prayed like never before, her voice shaking with sorrow. God, please, take me instead, she cried. I have lived my life, poor and sacrificing, but let this girl live. I make this one last sacrifice. May Nkiruka never suffer. May whoever makes her suffer, suffer too. May whoever takes from her also lose 4 times what they have taken. I give myself away as I make this sacrifice. Take me instead and heal my granddaughter. Let her know happiness. Let her never suffer again. And may her children and her children's children know no sadness. That night, her grandmother passed away in her sleep. But the next morning, Nkiruka's infection was gone. Her leg was still weak, but she lived. Back in the palace, chaos erupted. The prince stood up suddenly, his face filled with anger. I told you she was wicked, he shouted at his mother. The queen turned to the seer, her hands shaking. Where is this grandchild? What do we do? The seer's eyes darkened. She knows. When she is ready to tell the truth, she will. Adaku's husband clenched his jaw and stormed out of the room. I am done with this, he shouted. Adaku, still weak from childbirth, followed him outside to the garden, tears running down her face. My husband, please, she begged, reaching for his hand. He pulled away from her touch. Explain to me where my children are, he said coldly. If not, I am cutting all funds to your family's collapsing business. We have been reviving it for too long, and it is not helping. I will marry a woman who will bear me heirs. Adaku fell to the ground, wailing. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be nothing. No one cared. No one helped her up. She was alone. Adaku was no longer respected. She had lost everything. She was always the one begging her husband. And when the third child disappeared, the palace could not take it anymore. And it was done. A new wife was brought into the palace. Adaku protested, screaming, "I won't be taken for a fool. I am going back to my father's house." "Young girl, mind how you talk to me," the queen warned her, her voice sharp. Adaku scoffed. "Or what? I am leaving your cursed house anyway." She stormed out, but no one stopped her. When she arrived at her father's house, everything had changed. Her brothers were now working, employed by Emenike. Nkiruka was a lawyer, helping her husband run his businesses. But her family's businesses were gone. Only her brothers worked, and their wives made it clear they would not support a grown woman. "There is no room for you here," one of her brother's wives said bluntly. "We have our own children to care for." Her parents had retired after the family business collapsed. They could barely fend for themselves, let alone her. Adaku cried and cried, not knowing what to do. Left with no choice, she walked back to Umenze kingdom, her pride shattered. Begging for forgiveness was the hardest thing she ever did. The queen watched as Adaku wept before her, humiliated and broken. Out of pity, the queen sighed. "There is nothing I can offer you. You left your marriage, so she is now the first wife," she said, pointing to the new wife. "You removed yourself from the duties of a wife." Tears streamed down Adaku's face. "Please, my queen, don't send me away." "The only thing I can do," the queen said, "is give you a job as a maid for her." Adaku's eyes widened in shock. "Me? A maid? I can never be a maid. Never." "Then you can leave," the queen said, turning away. Adaku stood at the door, shaking. She had nowhere to go. Slowly, she turned back, swallowing her pride. "I will stay," she whispered. But in her heart, she had a plan. She would seduce and win back her husband. She did, and again she conceived. But before she could give birth, the new wife delivered a healthy baby boy. And when Adaku gave birth, her fourth child vanished like the other. This time, there was no pity left for her. The new wife, now in full power, made sure Adaku felt pain. She was humiliated daily, given the worst task, treated as less than nothing. Adaku could not take it anymore. One night, she ran. She walked back to her village, crying, her feet swollen, her body weak. But there was no welcome for her there. By now, everyone had heard. Everyone knew the once proud princess had become a maid. As she walked, women whispered, some laughed. "Isn't that the maid from Umenze? She thought she was better than us. Look at her now." Adaku lowered her head in shame, but she kept walking. There was only one place left to go. She reached Emenike's house, trembling. Nkiruka opened the door, her face unreadable. I am here to apologize," Adaku said, her voice cracking. Emenike stepped forward. "You must apologize in front of everyone," he said firmly. When her parents arrived, Adaku fell to her knees, sobbing. "Nkiruka, I am sorry. I am sorry for calling you crippled. I am sorry for calling you a maid's daughter. I am sorry for everything I have done." She paused, wiping her tears. "I poured oil on the stairs. I didn't know you were pregnant. I know I was malicious. I only wanted to hurt your leg." Nkiruka's eyes welled with tears. "I realized that not forgiving was hurting me too," she whispered. "Shortly after I forgave whoever did that, I conceived." She turned and left the room. Moments later, she returned, walking slowly with 2 babies in her hands, her twin sons, now over 1 year old. Adaku gasped. You have children?" "Yes," Nkiruka said softly. "My miracle happened through forgiveness. Maybe you too will receive your miracle." Mr. Achebe and his wife stood frozen. They had never met their grandchildren before. They looked at Nkiruka, then at their daughter. Their hearts filled. They had mistreated another woman's daughter, and now they were left with their own child, broken and alone. With heavy hearts, they took Adaku home. Now they had to fend for her, but no one pitied her anymore. For the first time in her life, Adaku truly knew what it was to have nothing, to be looked down upon, and to be mocked.
The end.